Okay, so today we're going to be doing a program from scratch, and you're just going to follow along. We're actually going to write the whole program. I'm going to leave some things out on purpose just to see if you guys were following along and you can understand. Like I'm not going to be creating some of the regular expressions and things like that we'll be using. The regular expressions we're going to be using are really simple, but we're going to create a MadLibs. So the whole gist of this assignment is we will have a text file that this program reads that will look for the keywords, adjectives, nouns, verbs, anything you might find in a MadLibs, and then you're going to create substitutes for those, and it's automatically going to print out the results for you. So we will be using regular expressions. So we're going to definitely import for regular expressions. We're going to be opening up a file. We're going to call this file, actually we'll call it file for lack of better terms. We're going to use the open function, and you can name it whatever you want. I'm just going to call mine MadLibs 1.txt. Okay, and what that means is you're going to have a file over here that it's going to open. So let's do that real quick. So over here, we're going to click on Add File. Okay, and we're going to just basically name it whatever the name is over here. So I should have did that first. So we're going to name it madlibs.txt. And then there you go. Now there's our file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a MadLib online, which I already did. And what I do is I convert everywhere. Like normally MadLibs will have like underlines for, and then underneath that it will say, please put a noun here or things like that. If you guys aren't sure with MadLibs, here is one right here. So let me open this one, a new tab, and let me show you kind of what a MadLibs looks like. So this is Star Wars MadLibs. Sorry, it's super small. But it says Star Wars is and you can't see it real good right here, but it says adjective and then noun of adjective versus evil in a noun place. So you want to find a place and then adjectives and so on. So I did already find a story. My story, it was easy to copy. And I just changed all the underlines and where it said the names. I just made them into all uppercase. And then I put in, like adjective, noun, verb, adverb, adjective. So that's what. So we pretty much use adjective, noun, verb, and adverb in all of these. So if you have other things, like if it's noun place, you would want to put that, and certain things to look at. Maybe it might say verb past tense. You can put that in its own regular expression. So so you'll see. So there's our file. It's going to open up this file, and then so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna read that file. We're gonna read that file, but we're gonna store it as text, so that way we can use it. So we're gonna say file, which was the file name right here. That's what we called it, the variable, and we're just gonna say .read. Okay, so now it's gonna read it, and then we will close the file. We're not going to need it anymore. We basically just made a copy of it. Okay, and it's in read. Okay, so now we're going to set up our regular expression. So we're going to say regex equals, and then that's just, you can call it whatever. Well, we're calling it regex, that's a variable. And we're going to call on our module re, and we're going to call compile. And we're going to compile our regular expression. So we just learned those in the last chapter. So we're going to start it with R because it's going to be raw data. And then inside, whatever we're going to look for in here. So I'm going to look for adjective, noun, adverb, if you have pronouns. So I'm just going to do adjective and noun. I want to leave some for you guys. But we want to make sure we capture the entire thing. So we're going to put them into groups. So we're going to say adjective, all capital. I'll make sure it's all spelled right, all capitals, everything. And then right here, we're going to put these, the little tower things right here, So what basically what that's saying is And I know they have a proper term. Sometimes I'm not up with my terminology, but the little vertical line or bar, I think what that means is find this or whatever we're going to put in here. So we're just going to put in noun. Okay, so now whatever we compile and whatever we look into, it's going to find either the whole term because it's in parentheses, adjectived, or the whole term noun, and then we'll do something with it later. So once again, now that we have a regular expression set up, we can use it, for certain things to find stuff. So what we want to use here is we're going to actually find all of the adjectives and all of the nouns, and we're going to do that in a for loop. So we're going to go here. We're going to say for I. So that's our variable in, and then we're going to go regex, which is this compiled, regular expressions, and we're going to use the find all method. Find all, and then we're going to look at text. So what we're doing here is I is going to be our variable, so it's going to run through there. It's going to find all of these two that are in there within the text that we had here. So it's going to look up this, all of this, and it's going to find every adjective. It's going to find every noun, and that's what it's going to. And then it's going to create a list for us. And then I is going to be part of that list. Okay, but so watch. So we just do that. Let's just go print I. And I'll get rid of this, but let's just see what this thing looks like. So then you can see it goes through everywhere it finds it. It adds what it's found to the list, but they didn't find any nouns. So this is the first reference. Then when it finds nouns, it didn't find any adjectives, but it did find a noun. So basically we have this list of tuples here that will either look for an adjective or a noun and will return when they see that. So what we want to do with that now is we want to look in within these. So we have already found all of our adjectives and all of our nouns. Okay, so now we want to, let me clear my console. Let's get rid of this print statement. And now we're going to say for J and I, which means that, actually I should have left that print statement because then I can explain it. So let me just bring it back up. Let me bring back to where we were. So now it's saying since each one of these is I as it goes through your for loop, now J is going to be the variable that looks in each one of these I's. So J is going to be adjective, and then J is going to be blank. And then the next time I goes around in a for loop, J is going to be blank, then it's going to be noun. So what we're going to do with that is we're going to create an if statement that says if J does not equal blank. Okay, so all we want to do is we want to look for the ones where they matched. We're going to create another variable called reg, and we're going to create a new regular expression here. So we're going to say recompile. Okay, and we're going to start it. We're going to make it a raw string. Okay, and we're going to use the format method. And what the format method does is it basically inputs. So I'm going to put an empty placeholder. So that's what this is for the format method. Okay, and then we're going to format it to whatever we tell it in the parentheses. So basically, what's going to happen is now we're going to look up every time we see these things. We're going to create a variable called reg that's going to find each one of these. Okay, and then it's going to use that information, and then in a few more lines, we're going to use the sub method, and we're going to substitute. So what we're eventually going to do is substitute this for whatever adjective we want to put in there. So that's what this does. So it's basically creating the regular expression saying, hey, if you find one of these, let's create the regular expression for it, and then we're going to use that as a substitute. So then we're going to create yet another variable. Hopefully you guys get used to making variables called input text, and we're going to say input, and then we're going to ask, we're going to use F strings here. Enter the substitute for, and then since we're using F strings, we're just going to put in squiggly brackets, J, and then a colon at the end. So this is how the F strings works. Before, we would have had to do something like, if it wasn't F string, we'd have to do something like %s, and then, percent, and then J, something like that. But we would have to get rid of the F, so it'd be something like that. But we're going to go back. We're going to use F strings because they're a little bit easier to use. So now we're going to ask the user, hey, input your substitute for J. So whichever one that is not blank. So if it says, it's going to say for adjective, so basically enter a substitute for an adjective. And then here we're going to use, like I said, the sub command for our regular expression. So we're going to look it up and we're going to substitute what our input text was. Okay, so whatever we typed in here. So if we're looking for an adjective and we typed in an adjective, and adjective's a describing word. So if we said ugly, ugly is now going to be stored into imp text. And then what it's going to do is we're going to, I forgot the sub. My fault. Okay, so we're going to substitute, and this has multiple things. What we want to replace with what we want to replace and which one we want to replace, like how many of them. So if we want to replace only the first one we find, we do that. If we wanted to replace more, we put higher numbers in there. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to replace we're going to replace, sorry, I put that all backwards. My apologies. So let me bring it back up again. Let me see if I hover over it, if it'll come back up. So we want to put in our whatever we're going to replace with what we want to replace, and then what version. So I had it in the wrong order. So this is what we want it to be. This is what it was, and this is which one we want to replace. So now if we run that, what it's going to do now, it's going to keep cycling through. Every time it finds an adjective or a noun, it's going to ask us, what do we want to put for that? And then what we can do after we're all done with that, because that was in text, so it looked through text. And remember, text was our whole story. Let's just print out text and see what we did. Let's see what our work looks like. So we're going to say print text, okay? And then let's see if we made any mistakes here. So enter a substitute for an adjective. So we'll say ugly. Enter a substitute for noun. We'll say nouns are people, place, or things. We'll say beach. Okay, another adjective, we'll say scary. It's a describing word. Another noun would be castle. Okay, another noun would be, let's do a person. Let's say Bob. Another adjective will be a describing word. Let's say furry. I like all the E's, apparently. Another adjective, another describing word, plain. Okay, and you'll see here, I missed some verbs and adverbs, but you'll say, today I went to the zoo. I saw an ugly beech jumping up and down its tree. And I didn't do these. I left these out on purpose because I want you guys to do something. He, verb, adverb, through the large tunnel that led it to the scary castle. I got some peanuts and passed them through the cage to a gigantic gray bob towering above my head. Feeding that animal made me hungry. I went to get a furry scoop of ice cream. Yuck. It filled my stomach. Afterwards, I had a verb, adverb. So obviously I would have to make my my regular expression here a little bit longer to contain verbs and adverbs. It's whatever you want to put in there. You can just make it, and all of this is going to work. You don't really have to change it anymore down here. Just put whatever whatever extra nouns, pronouns, adverbs, or anything like that, just add them to your regular expression, but make sure you put the bar in between, the little vertical bar, so that way it's or. It's going to try to look for this or this or this or this or this. Okay, so now we have our text. So if I run this all over again, I just lost my story that I just made. I made a super cool story and I don't have it anymore. So the last thing we want to do is, why don't we store our story in its own file? So we're going to say file equals, and we're going to open up a file. We're going to call it MadLibs final. Okay. And we're going to open this thing with a parameter of write, which is W. Okay. So then now that we want to do that, we want to write to that file, which is that variable that we just created. Okay. And we want to write everything that we have stored in text. So all of this that we created, we want to store it in this file. And then we want to close it. Okay, so now I think we have our MadLibs. So we have our MadLib story here. Okay, and then it's going to run over here. But remember, once again, mine's going to miss out on the verbs and the adverbs. It's just going to do that. So let me run it real quick so you can see it. Create a file. So it's going to ask me for an adjective. So I'll just do the same thing. I'll say ugly, noun, castle, adjective. What's a good describing? Blue. Another noun, stick. Another noun, dog. Another adjective, scary. Another adjective, wiggly. And then you'll see that it says, today I went to the zoo. I saw an ugly castle jumping up and down its tree. And then it goes through the whole thing. But if you look right here, we have our story saved in its own file. We have our MadLibs final. So now if we ever wanted to read our story again, we go here. But remember, if you keep running it, it's going to overwrite this one. So you can possibly do something like, you can create something to where it names the file, maybe something like that. But for right now, that's all we want. For the assignment, I want you to do 2 MadLibs, have 2 output files. So I want MadLibs 1 and 2. Name it whatever you want. You can say Bob 1 and 2 or Alice 1 and 2, but I want you to read 2 different MadLibs. You can use the same thing. All you have to do is change whatever file you're reading here from 1 to 2. And then whatever the name of the file is going to be. So you can say MadLibs Final 1 for the first one and MadLibs Final 2 for the last one. And then that way you'll have both your MadLibs. So that's pretty much it. That's MadLibs. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a good day.